were out $8.8 million. How did we close it? We restructured our debt. We had other reassignment, attritional savings for $1.3 million. We eliminated our PR TV studio. We cut back in curriculum supplies, $1.3 million. We cut the technology out of the budget, which is what we've been saying has been an issue, that was the first thing to go. Curriculum and technology, we had to get back to that. Now, we have got back to that in the last couple of years because we spent about $1.6 million on curriculum resources, despite what's been going on here the past couple of years. That'll be in my op-ed article. So, I mean, while we've been doing this, we have been supporting our programs and growing our programs and supplementing them. Increased revenue projection, and then we had the tax increase. So that, I think if you total that up real quick, it gets you your 8.8.
Okay, in restructuring the debt, there is a cost to that, correct?
Yes.
There's the solicitors' fees, there are fees to the Security and Exchange Commission, and et cetera, et cetera. Where did that money come from? Did it come from the savings of closing Ridgefield and Vernondale?
You could say that, yes.
Okay.
I don't have that in front of me, but I would say yes,
And
probably.
Thank you. The estimate of 1.921 million, are we looking at, you have data to back up those numbers, correct? In other words, the two principals and whether you had assistant principals, et cetera, you have documentation to back up those numbers, correct?
In terms of the specific names of the people who are no longer in those positions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, we will receive a copy of this, correct?
Sure. We post this on our website like we have. We posted the presentation on the website the next day. This will be on the website. If there's no other questions, I'd like to get to the options because I think that's kind of what people want to talk about if we can.
One of the other things that we've talked about before is our ability to sell the two buildings, now that it's been brought up here, Ridgefield and Vernondale. We do have a buyer for Ridgefield. We're being, a lot of the Montessori Charter School has filed a lot of motions with the court, and essentially we're being delayed to sell to a buyer.
Correct.
And with that money, our problem half goes away. Correct. I think it's 1.1 or whatever it is.
1.1 for Ridgefield.
And with a 2.4, that would solve a lot of these issues if that was sold. And we're being delayed here.
That would certainly help. I wouldn't say it would solve it because we still need to build the fund balance. We still need to get capital reserves. So we would have to talk about how we divvy that money up.
Yeah.
But we also have $1.5 million coming from the sale of Asbury Woods, the Nature Center, the 2 parcels, which should take place by the end of this fiscal year, June 30. And we are hoping that we have a Wegmans judgment that came in our favor, that they appealed, that we're waiting to hear about the appeal, that we feel pretty good about. So we do have good news coming in terms of being able to build our reserves.
If it comes
Certainly. Yep.
Hey, I'd like to just jump in for a second, if you'd allow me. The technology there at 673, I've been on the board here for 6 years, and Mr. Delfrat would have a better understanding, but I don't think we've been cutting for 10 years, but we've absolutely, for the past 4 years, cut almost $750,000 out every year, and the technology just hasn't kept up, and we've never been able to replenish that. And to put 675 back in the budget doesn't make up, just like you show that if you don't increase your taxes for this year, and this year, and this year, if we put 650, 675 back in, we're still upside down, so we really need to boost that technology. And I know that we do have a plan to take out a bond for a few years to increase our technology. And initially, they've come in and said they'd like to do it K through 8, and I'm pushing it to go K through 12, top to bottom. We've got 7,000 plus kids. We need to have the technology, and we have to do that. And that's an expense that I'm going to actually ask them to increase if it means that we have to take the bond for an additional 2 years, because that is one place we've really whacked it, and we've got to catch up. This is a technology-driven world.
I'd like to bring something up also regarding the sale of Ridgefield and sale of Asbury. If those funds were to come in this year, if that happens, I'd just like to point out that for the length of January 1st, 2017, be right back here again, aren't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's part of your long-range plan and your long-range decision. Where are we going to be January 1st, 2017, and the years after?
Tom?
I got it.
Something, okay. Got it.
Um,
All right, let me do this real quick. So we presented, the board, you asked us to come back with options, okay? So we cut it down to 3 options, and I think this is the information that went out. And it was just a sort of a blanket look at the 3 options, so we can talk a little bit more in detail. Option 1 is a tax increase over and above the Act 1 index and going as far as we can. And getting exceptions and applying for exceptions and assuming that we are approved for those exceptions. We've done all the legwork, we've applied, we have our seat on the bus, so to speak, for that, if it comes through. If that happens and we do that, we think we're good. We can probably figure out where we can get $240,000 somewhere else. So option 1, you raise taxes as high as you can raise it, we're done. Option 2, if you go to the index, which is, how many percent? 2.9%, which again, the state dictates through the Act 1 index how much we can go to without asking for a referendum and applying for it early on. We did that back in November. So the state sets this, the Act 1 index. If we went and took that increase to the index, we still have to look at a couple programs. What programs did we look at? Our priority was to touch the least amount of kids. What programs do we have currently that we could get considerable money? And your money is in staff, okay? Money's in people, money's in benefits. Okay, so when you're looking at savings, that's where the money is. And again, we prioritize the least amount of students. Our old ed program right now, minimal students. We would do this anyway, even if you went with option 1, we would still close all ed, because our all ed program, the numbers have gone way down. We've been able to handle those kids in the building. We have enough interventions in place, and we still have other options out there for students who are that egregious that we may have to refer to an outside alternative ed program. The Montessori, there's 70, I don't have that in front of me, how many? 65 students in there currently. Yes, we talked about it a couple years ago. It is what it is. Again, if you're looking at numbers and programs, it has to be, again, has to be a programmatic cut. The state doesn't allow us just to lay off teachers because our budget isn't working. You have to cut a program. Okay, that's something to keep in mind as well. So those are the 2 programs that affect the least amount of kids that we would be able to do it if you go to the index. Okay.
Bill or Aaron, can you elaborate on the Montessori, the 419,000?
Sure.
How did we come up with that number?
We know 15 people retiring. Therefore, we know the 6 people who currently operate the Montessori program would fit within those 15 people retiring. So I was able to calculate.
Four teachers, 2 aides.
Right.
So 4 going in. Not
So
6.
yeah, you're right. So I was able to take those positions from who they were retiring and calculate out their salary, their benefits, and gave us our bottom line number. Not the people actually in the position of Montessori, it's those who are retiring.
So you look at
Is there
salary.
anything else other than those? So those
No,
4
that is
people-
strictly the salaries and benefits.
So
Salaries and
with
benefits.
4 people, we're looking at almost $100,000 per individual, or per position.
Yep. Two ed assistant positions, full-time with benefits.
I have a question for you.
Yep.
Transportation, what falls under that for 1.5 million?
Yeah. Well, can I say that for last?
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously the third option is the most
Yeah.
egregious, if you will. I keep using that term, but and as you go down the list, it's worse.
Mr. Hall, I call option 3 scorched earth.
Well, if we're not raising taxes, we're scorching the district, so.
Hey,
That's,
One quick question. The population of the students to the grade level, are you incorporating any projections for this budget for next year? I mean, are there going to be more kids in middle school,